In this video, we will deploy a child domain controller that is a audit.gogreen.com under a root domain that is gogreen.com. While child domain controller is required, if you want to separate a branch office or you want to separate a department like an audit department here, you have to deploy another domain controller that is called a CDC as a child domain controller. Later on, we will also install a tree domain controller, and the structure like this: the root domain have a parent domain as a parent domain, have a child domain, is a tree structure, and a complete the this is a forest like the rectangle you see here. It's all under the forest. Inside the forest we have a root domain, a child domain, and a tree domain. This completes a forest. So let's try to configure our child domain controller. This is a DC, that is gogreen.com, our first domain controller. Let's see the configuration of domain controller first. Let's see the IP address of our domain controller, because the DNS plays a very important role here, so we have to check with the DNS as well. So let's see the IP address of our domain controller. We have IP address like 192.68.88 and 10, and it's pointing to itself as a DNS server. So let's have a look with the DNS. It seems I have it open here. Okay. This is our DNS server. We have a forward lookup zone as a gogreen. Host A record is there, and also we have a reverse lookup zone. We have a pointer record pointing to our DNS server. Let's confirm it with a command prompt. If we type ms lookup, the name can be resolved. The QDN name is dc-01.gogreen.com. The IP address is 192.168.88.10, and let's see if we can resolve from IP to name. 10. Yes, it seems to be working fine. That means our DNS is perfectly fine. So let's go to our child domain controller. This is not a child domain controller yet, but we will configure it as a child domain controller. Let me maximize it, and let's see the IP address of this machine. Okay, the IP address for this machine is 12, and the DNS for our child domain controller have to point to our root DC, that is our gogreen.com. So I have set it as a DNS server as a 10 to our domain controller, and the alternate DNS can be pointed to itself. And let's see if we can communicate with our domain controller or not. Let's try to ping 192.168.88.10. Yes, we are able to ping it, and let's also run a ms lookup. Yeah, it can communicate with it. So let's try to configure it as a child domain controller. The steps are similar as we install a DC in our earlier video. So we have to select the role based or feature based installation, click on next. Now CDC is a computer name and this is the IP address 192.168.88.12. Click on next. Here we will select the Active Directory domain service. Here I'm not selecting the DNS, but when we install Active Directory, it will prompt us to install DNS, because it is recommended when you're installing Active Directory. It is recommended to install a DNS server, because it is used to authenticate the DNS server. The integrated DNS server, Active Directory integrated server, is used to authenticate a user and find the DC on your network. So that's why the DNS is required. And the default feature which get installed with Active Directory is group policies required, remote server administration, PowerShell, Windows Defender. All these settings are by default. Click on next. Let me install the role first. Right now I'm installing a role, and after that we will promote this computer as a domain controller. Earlier we have to use a DC promote command to promote the computer as a domain controller, but now it is not required. We have to install it in this way. So let's wait for a while. And CDC means, like, if you have some department like audit department, HR, or account department, you want to make them as a separate department. You don't want to be those department to log on to the regular domain controller, and you can assign an administrator, a delegate administrator to manage those user inside your child domain controller. And all the policies and password policies, group policy will be different for your child domain controller. And even they can log on to your root domain as well, and the root domain user can also log on to a child domain controller, because they have a trust relationship between them, as a transitive trust, as a parent child domain trust. So it seems to be installed. Let's close this. Now you can see a yellow mark here. Now it will ask us to promote the server to a domain controller. Let's promote this. See, here we have a three option, like add a domain controller to an existing domain. Though we already have a domain, like gogreen.com is our first root TC. So if we want to install another domain controller, we can choose this option, but it will not make it as a child domain controller. And when we add this, the third option, if you see, add a new forest. When we install a domain controller, the first domain controller, the forest is automatically created. If you install a new domain controller as a new forest, that means a new forest is all automatically created with the domain. So now here we will see the third option and the middle option, that is add a new domain to an existing domain. We are adding a new domain to an existing domain. That means we have a domain, gogreen.com is already domain we have, already a forest, sorry. We have a domain to add a new domain to an existing forest, means we already have a forest, because we have already created a new forest. So we have a forest and we are going to create a child domain. Now here we see a child domain, and if you select this option, you get the two options, child domain and tree domain. What is the difference between child domain and tree domain? Child domain consists of parent name with it. Example like audit.gogreen.com, which we are going to create. But the tree domain can be a different name, like test.com or anything else. You don't have to use a root domain name in that. Okay, and child domain, the parent domain is gogreen.com, and let's select. And here you should have right with the enterprise admin, like enterprise admin of a gogreen.com, because the enterprise administrator can only do this task. If you don't have that credential, you cannot perform this task. So I'm giving it a credential, GoGreen administrator, the password for the administrator of GoGreen, Okay, and let's see, retrieving domains in a forest. That means we already have created a first domain. That means the forest is created. That is our gogreen.com. The parent domain is gogreen.com, and the new domain is audit, AUDIT, audit. If we are creating a child domain, you can just put a NetBIOS name in a new domain name. But if you are going to create a tree domain, you have to put audit.com.net. That means complete DNS name is required. So it is now set. We have set the credentials as well. Let's move to the next step. It will identify the NetBIOS name as well. So audit, our new child domain will be created as audit.gogreen.com, and the NetBIOS name for that child domain will be audit. So it is now next screen, and let's see the domain function level. If you have watched the earlier video, the previous video, we have selected our domain functional level as a Windows Server 2016. That's why it's not giving us the option of a previous operating system. So that means in this organization of a gogreen.com, we cannot install any domain controller prior to 2016. We have already set it as a 2016 server, so it is fine with us. And the global catalog, you can select the global catalog here, but the global catalog means a server, a root DC server can be a global catalog server, which we already have in place. That means a root DC server can find the object in an entire forest. So we already have it set as a domain controller, so it is not necessary to have a global catalog. So I'm just installing a DNS here. It's prompting us for a DNS server to install. I will install a DNS and Active Directory, and of course the DSRM password. DSRM password can be a different password than your administrator password. It is used while booting a computer in DSRM mode. It will prompt for this password, so you have to remember this password if you have to boot your computer in a DSRM mode. Sometime it is required in case of repair. And now you can see a DNS delegation. In a previous video where we have installed a root DC, the first domain controller, it gave us an error at this point of time, and now it's not giving us an error, and it's saying that create a delegation. That means at that time we don't have any DNS server installed on our environment, so that's why it gave us an error for the DNS delegation, means authoritative parent zone cannot be formed. So now we have an authoritative parent zone with our gogreen.com. So now we can create a DNS delegation for the server. So it is automatically checked, and let's click on next. It will identify the domain name. Sorry, it will identify the NetBIOS name. The NetBIOS name is audit, and the complete name will be audit.gogreen.com. So the audit is a NetBIOS domain name. Let's click on next, and now it will do a pre-request check. It's a database log file in sysvol folder. It has a default location inside C, Windows and NTDS, and sysvol folder C, Windows, sysvol. So click on next. Now here you can see a review your selection. And one thing more, if you see the script here, view script, if you have a core server Windows 2016 running in your environment and you want to deploy your child domain controller, and you can just perform all the tasks as we have done, and you can just copy this script and you can paste this script in your server core, and it will install the same child domain controller. Only the difference is that you cannot find a password here. When you will put this command, this script in a Windows Server core, It will prompt you for a password, that a DSRM password. You have to put the DSRM password and it will go through. So let's close this and click on next. It will do a pre-request check, like all the necessary steps we have performed or not. If anything is missing, it will give us an error, otherwise it will go through. So let's see. It says all the pre-request check has been passed successfully. Click install to begin the installation. So let's click on install and we will see it's checking forest upgrade status, and let's see if it goes through or not. It will check all the settings and then it will configure it as a child domain controller. For the meanwhile, I'll pause the video and let this step get finished. See here, it's creating a trust between the computers and securing the machine and securing the system, security Kerberos policy, configuring the DNS service on the computer. Now it is done. Let's close this and it will get restarted. The computer will get restarted. Let's restart the computer now. So let me close this. Let's close this. And what we will do, we have created a user here. If we see here in a DC, I have created a user. Sorry, let me unlock it. It's a Go Green administrator, and what we are going to check here, we will log in with the user. If we see here, I have a user in Active Directory, users and computer. Let's see if I have a user, or otherwise I will create the user. So Go Green. Okay, we don't have any user. Let's create some user here. Though it has a user, like it has a default users, and domain controller is DC01 as a global catalog. So let me create a new OU. Sorry, it's user, new organizational unit. You can see as a company users, and inside company users I will create some user like user 1, password for the user. Okay, finish. And if you want the same user settings, you can just copy this user, and I'll create another user as a user 2. This is for a testing purpose. User, sorry, user 2. Password. Okay, 2 users are created here, and what we will try to do, we will join a machine with the gogreen.com domain, and in that machine we will try to log in with this user, and also we will create some user inside our child domain controller, and we will also try to use in the same machine, like the machine joined as a domain with the gogreen.com will be able to log in, will be able to communicate with the user in a child domain controller because of the trust. Let's see if you the child, we have completed the installation. Let's see domain, Active Directory, domain, and trust as well. If we see Go Green right now and see the properties of a Go Green, if you see the trust here, you see the gogreen.com is our root domain, has a trust with the audit.gogreen.com. that is a trust type is a child trust and is a transitive. That means it is a two-way trust. Okay, and if we see to audit.gogreen.com, that means, okay, we have to first, it also has a trust with the gogreen.com. Our audit.gogreen.com also has a trust with our parent domain, and it's a parent trust type is a parent, and it's a transitive trust. So it is, the trust has been created. So let's jump to our child domain controller. I hope it has started. Let's see. It's applying computer settings. As we have installed Active Directory and DNS, so the first time it will take some time to boot up. This is our CDC. Let's wait for a while. Okay, let me pause the video if it's taking some time. Let me pause it. Let us try to join our computer as a domain to a domain. I have a client computer on here. Let me start this computer, and we will join this computer with a domain on a gogreen.com. So let's get it connected. Okay, it has restarted quickly. Okay, now we are on a client machine, and let me see the computer name. It's a client 01, and right now it is in a work group. And let us check the IP address. I have given it an IP address of 30, I believe. Let me cross check it. Yeah, we have a 192.168.88.30, and the DNS is pointing to our DNS server as on a root domain server like gogreen.com. Okay, let me confirm it by pinging it with the, let's ping 192.168.88.10. Yeah, we have a communication. Let's do ns lookup. Okay, now I will join this computer on the domain gogreen.com. I'm the administrator of gogreen.com. Okay, it says welcome to gogreen.com. Now let's join as a domain, and let's restart it now. Let's see what our CDC. Okay, it's back, it's came up now. This is my CDC. Okay, now it says audit/administrator. So password for audit administrator. After that, you can create a new administrator and delegate him a permission on this machine, and that administrator can manage this child domain controller, like the user inside it, the OUs inside it, group policy, password policies, everything he can manage on this child domain controller after giving him a delegation to this domain controller. So now it is restarted, and we have completed our child domain controller setup process, and let's see, once it is completely done, I will show you the Active Directory domain and trust, and we will see this. Right now we have checked the trust on our domain controller, that is our root DC gogreen.com, and now we will see the trust relationship between our child domain to our root DC. So let's open Active Directory domain and trust. It's gogreen.com. That means it has a trust with the gogreen.com as a parent, and gogreen.com has a trust as a child. Here you can see. So let's create a user here, and we will try to log in with this user. See, earlier we created a user inside gogreen.com, and this is a audit.gogreen.com. So here we don't find that OU, and let me quickly create a new OU, and name is at a audit department. Okay, and let's create a user as a audit one. Okay, password for the user. I don't want user to set the password. Okay, now this is a user inside audit.gogreen.com, and the client we have joined as a domain in a domain with gogreen.com. So I hope this user and a user 1 and user 2, both will be able to log in. All the three user will be able to log in to that client machine. So let's have a check on that. Let's go to our client computer. This is our client. Okay, let's log in with the other user that it is joined with the GoGreen domain. So let's try to log in with the user 1 and the password for the user 1. Okay, it's logged in. This may take several minutes. Almost there. Okay, the user 1 is logged in now. Let me log off from this user. Sign out, and we'll try to log in with another user, that is audit.1. Let's see if it goes through or not. The user here, it is a GoGreen, and I'll type it here, audit / audit1, password for this user, it's audit1. Let's see if it goes through or not. Okay, so that means it's logging in. That means this is a trust relationship between these domains that is allowing us to log into the cross domain inside the forest. But if we have another forest, a different forest, that means you don't have a trust between those forests, you cannot log into that. In later videos, like, we will try to create the forest, and we'll create a forest trust we will create a tree domain, we will check with the additional domain controller, we will take a backup, and we will also discuss with the FSMO roles in details, and also with the DNS server. So right now we are logged in, so we have a trust, and both the user can log into a same domain. So it is done. Let's close this. Let us see the DNS settings on our domain controller, that is a root DC. This is our root DC. Password for the DC. Let me maximize, and we'll also try to join a domain controller with a child domain controller. We'll join one more machine, and let's see if it is joining it as a domain or not. Let's see the DNS. If we see this, see the audit. This has been created automatically as a name server for our child domain controller here, and you can see here it will take the entry as a forest. Here you can see the entry for our host A in a forest DNS zone. We have an entry for our child domain controller. And let's join a new machine to our child domain controller. The IP address of our child domain controller is 12, like 192.168.88.12, and I have a client here. Let's see, it is not joined as a domain right now. I'll set a IP addressing for this, and now we want to join it with a child domain controller so that it will log into a child domain controller. The IP address is 12, and the preferred DNS for this machine is 192.168.88.12. And let's see if it's communicating with it or not. CMD, let's ping 192.168.88.12. Yes, it is. And ls lookup, it's saying cdc.audit.gogreen.com. so let's try to add this machine. This is a client 2, earlier it was client 1. Now I will join this machine with audit. Let's see, audit.gogreen.com. Okay, administrator password. Welcome to audit.gogreen.com. So now it is joined, and on this client as well we can the users inside the child domain controller can log in, and also the user of our main domain controller, that is our global catalog server, that is our root DC gogreen.com. those users will also be able to log in on this computer, and the password policy and the group policy which is applied on those users, on a gogreen.com user, the same policy will be applied if they log into this computer. And if the policy and password policies, a group policy and password policy on a child domain controller is applied and they try to log into gogreen.com, the same policy will be applied to those users. So there is nothing different with the policies. This is audit, and we have a user audit1. I don't have to type the audit because it's already under the audit, and let me give the password. Audit1 is able to log in now. Okay, it's logging in. Let me sign out and quickly log in with the user 1 as well. Let's try to log in with other user. Now it is joined as a domain with the audit. I'll go with the go green backslash user1 and password for the user. Now it seems it is logging in. So what we want to do was, it's now completed, and you can subscribe for the channel. You can subscribe the channel for more videos. Like I will and the later videos will be on the forest preparation and trust relationship between forest, a tree domain, and also in a Hyper-V. So thank you for watching.